No woman is going to walk up to you, look you in the eye, and tell you directly that she finds you attractive and that you should do something about it. That is simply not how attraction communicates itself. What she will do instead is something far quieter and far more revealing. She will touch something, and if you have never learned what to look for, you will stand there completely unaware while the moment closes itself and she moves towards someone who was actually paying attention. Here is the part that should genuinely get your attention. Research published in the Journal of Nonverbal Behavior found that more than 90% of the emotional communication that happens between two people occurs without a single spoken word. 90%? That means the most significant conversation she is having with you right now is not coming out of her mouth. It is happening through her body, her hands, her gestures, and the vast majority of men have never been taught how to read any of it. So here is something worth saying plainly. Women are not nearly as difficult to read as they are made out to be. The signals are there, they are consistent, they are rooted in real behavioral psychology and backed by decades of research from institutions including Harvard, Princeton, and the Kinsey Institute. The problem has never been that women are unknowable. The problem is that no one ever gave you the framework to understand what you were seeing. That changes now. One more thing before the first signal. The eighth and final one on this list is the one that trips men up most consistently because it does not look anything like what most people imagine attraction to look like. Most men read it as the opposite of interest, but when a woman does it, she is already somewhere inside the experience of imagining what being with you might feel like. So stay through to the end because that single signal could genuinely reframe the way you interpret interactions with women going forward. The first thing a woman touches when she is drawn to someone is her hair. And before you dismiss that as something you already knew, consider that there is an enormous difference between a woman moving hair away from her face because the wind is blowing and a woman repeatedly touching, twisting, or repositioning her hair because you are standing in front of her. Dr. David Givens, who directs the Center for Nonverbal Studies and has spent more than 3 decades researching human courtship behavior, describes this kind of repeated hair touching as one of the oldest and most reliable attraction signals in the species. It is not a conscious choice. It is neurological. When attraction triggers the release of dopamine and norepinephrine, the resulting nervous energy moves through the body, and the hands are among the first places it surfaces. The hair is right there. The way to distinguish signal from habit is repetition and context. If she touches her hair once and moves on, that is grooming. But if she keeps returning to it, twisting a strand around her finger, drawing it over one shoulder in a way that deliberately exposes her neck, that is her body communicating something her voice has not said yet. Which brings us directly to the neck. When a woman lightly traces her fingers along her neck or collarbone while talking with you, something specific is happening beneath the surface. The neck is among the most physically vulnerable parts of the human body. Major arteries run close to the skin there. From an evolutionary standpoint, drawing attention to or exposing the neck has long functioned as a signal of trust and openness toward another person. She is communicating without a single word that she feels safe in your presence and that she wants you to see her in a way that goes beyond casual conversation. Vanessa Van Edwards, who leads the Science of People Research Lab, has noted that neck touching in women during interactions with men, they find attractive increases by nearly 300% compared to interactions with men they feel nothing toward. 300%. That number does not emerge from coincidence. It emerges from biology doing what it has always done. From a personal standpoint, this particular signal is often invisible to the woman herself while it is happening. It tends to register only after the conversation ends, if at all, which means when you observe it, you are seeing something genuinely unfiltered. Her body is being more honest than her words would ever risk being. The next signal is subtle but carries significant weight. When a woman touches her lips, whether pressing a finger lightly against them, biting her lower lip, or applying lip balm while keeping her eyes on yours, she is doing something deliberate even if she is not fully conscious of the deliberateness. She is directing your attention to one of the most visually engaging features of her face. Research from the University of Manchester using eye tracking technology found that men spend approximately 43% of their time looking at a woman's face, focused specifically on the lips, particularly when lip color creates contrast against the skin. Women have understood this instinctively for a very long time. The invention of lipstick was not accidental. It was an amplification of a signal that was already working. When she touches her lips in front of you, she is placing a spotlight on the exact feature she knows already holds your gaze. If that is not a clear signal of interest, nothing is. Now we move to something that is consistently underestimated. When a woman begins fidgeting with her jewelry during a conversation with you, spinning a ring, pulling at an earring, running a necklace back and forth along its chain, her nervous system is telling you something her composure is trying to conceal. Behavioral psychologists describe this kind of behavior as a self-soothing displacement response. It occurs when the body is managing a surge of emotional arousal, which in this context means excitement, nervousness, and attraction, all pressing against each other at once. The jewelry becomes an outlet for energy that has nowhere else to go. Dr. Albert Mehrabian, whose research on communication remains foundational in the field, found that self-touching behaviors increase significantly when someone is emotionally engaged in an interaction. The more drawn to you she is, the more her hands need to be doing something. And if that something keeps bringing her hands toward a necklace sitting just above her chest, she is not being subtle about where she wants your attention to land. From self-touching, we move to direct contact, and this is where interpretation becomes considerably easier. When a woman reaches out and touches your arm, your hand, or your shoulder during conversation, she is crossing a social boundary that people do not cross casually. Physical contact between two people who are not yet intimate carries real neurological weight. Research from DePaul University found that even a brief touch during a social interaction meaningfully increases the other person's sense of warmth, trust, and attraction toward the person who initiated it. So when she touches your arm, she is not only expressing interest, she is also actively building a sense of connection between you. It is a two-directional strategy, and it is a remarkably effective one. Here is what that moment calls for from you. If a woman makes that kind of contact and the man she touches goes completely still, shows no response, does not smile or lean in or acknowledge what just happened, it lands like throwing something to someone and watching it drop. No catch, no response, nothing. The correct move is to meet it. Acknowledge it with warmth. Lean slightly toward her. Mirror the gesture when it feels natural. She just communicated something significant without using language. The response she is hoping for is recognition. Here is one that most men genuinely never notice. When you are sitting across from a woman and she begins slowly tracing the rim of her glass, running a finger along the edge of her cup, or moving her hand up and down the stem of a wine glass, pay attention. Former FBI behavior analyst Joe Navarro, who has written extensively on body language, describes object manipulation during conversation as a strong indicator of emotional and often physical interest. The object in her hands becomes a substitute. She is channeling the physical energy of her attraction into something she can touch because the relationship has not yet reached the point where she can direct that energy toward you. The glass is receiving the attention she actually wants to give you. If she is doing this while holding eye contact and there is a smile in the exchange, the level of interest involved should not require further analysis. Another signal that most people overlook in terms of its meaning is clothing adjustment. When a woman straightens her top, smooths her skirt, tugs at a sleeve, or repositions anything about her appearance after noticing you or while speaking with you, she is engaging in what evolutionary biologists recognize as preening behavior. Researcher Jeffrey Miller has drawn detailed parallels between this kind of human behavior and the grooming rituals observed in other species before. Potential mate selection. It is not vanity. It is biology directing her toward presenting the best possible version of herself to someone her instincts have identified as worth impressing. The important distinction is timing. If she was already adjusting her clothing before you arrived, that tells you nothing specific. But if the adjustments begin once you appear or once the two of you start talking, that behavior is aimed directly at you. The fact that she cares how she looks in your eyes specifically is its own form of communication. Now for the final signal, the one most men read entirely wrong. When a woman rests her chin in her hand, cradles her face gently, or touches her cheek while listening to you speak, the most common male interpretation is boredom. He assumes she's propping herself up because she has lost interest in the conversation. That reading is almost always incorrect. What she is actually doing is called facial framing. Dr. Monica Moore of Webster University conducted a landmark observational study involving more than 200 women across multiple social settings and documented over 50 distinct nonverbal behaviors associated with attraction. Facial self-touching, specifically chin resting and cheek cradling, appeared consistently in the top 10 behaviors displayed by women who were actively interested in and engaged with the man they were speaking to. The psychology behind it is straightforward. When she frames her face with her hands, she is unconsciously drawing your attention directly to her features, her eyes, the way she smiles, the expressiveness of her face. She is inviting you to really see her. It is an act of quiet vulnerability, and it tends to appear specifically when she feels comfortable enough in your presence to let some of her guard dissolve. If you have ever sat across from a woman who was resting her chin in her hand with her eyes on yours and a soft expression on her face, and you walked away thinking she seemed uninterested, she was not uninterested. She was doing the opposite of uninterested, and the moment passed without you reaching for it. Here is what ties all of this together. Not one of these signals involves language. Every single one of them bypasses words entirely, and that is precisely why they go unread so consistently. Most people have been taught to listen for what someone says, but the body speaks before the mouth does, and it tends to be considerably more honest. A woman's words might tell you she's just being friendly. Her hands, her posture, and her unconscious, physical responses are telling you the actual story. Now that you have this, the responsibility that comes with it is not to use it manipulatively or to treat every gesture as a guarantee. It is simply to pay attention. The next time you are in a conversation with a woman and you notice her returning to her hair, drawing attention to her neck, touching her lips, reaching toward you, or resting her face in her hand while she looks at you, do not stand there frozen. Recognize what is happening and respond to it with presence and warmth. She's already halfway across the space between you. All you have to do is move toward her. If this gave you a new way of seeing these interactions, share it with someone who could use it.